Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach, and I've got 4 other podcasts. You'll find everything on bio.link/podcaster. My guest today in the US, shamanic, I was struggling earlier to say that, energy healer and a Rekki, basically career change expert. Please welcome Jassy Jackson.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today.
No, and I actually left out podcaster as well because you've got your own podcaster which you co-host with Anna, I believe is the lady that you co-host with.
Yes. We started that podcast to just document our adventures and into this world and share with people the modalities that work for us.
Oh, brilliant. So we'll delve into that in a bit later, but you might just let the listeners know a little bit more about Jassy.
Yeah, of course. So I started off as a Reiki master, which basically means that I use a specific technique to empower people to reset their energy. I also have a background in psychology. I'm not a licensed therapist, just to make that clear, but I do have a master's in industrial and organizational psychology. And for about 13 years now, I have empowered people to shift their careers, take on new roles. And the people that come to see me for Reiki or shamanic energy resets are usually people that want to shift their careers or do something different. So I took that as a sign and took what I um, I developed in the corporate world in terms of workshops and ways that people can shift their careers and combine them with the energy work that I do today. And so my offerings today incorporate resetting energy, finding your calling, and teaching different modalities that allows you to shift out of anxiety and feelings of discomfort. And I also teach levels 1, 2, and master level of Reiki.
Okay, excellent. And I'd like to delve into the Reiki and understand it better, but I'd like to know your own journey because sometimes we tend to something happens in our life to kind of follow this path. So you might let us know your journey.
Yeah, of course. So I climbed the corporate ladder pretty fast in my 20s. And, I made it to the biggest corner office in the building and I ran different departments and I got my degrees and I got married. And I basically checked off all of the boxes that society said I should be checking off. And I thought along the way that I'd be happier and happier. And that was not necessarily the case because I was following somebody else's agenda. So back in 2015, I was visiting my sister and I was pretty sick and things were just sort of coming out and when I say coming out, I mean emotionally, because I was always just ignoring all of those emotions. And something had happened in my life where I was realizing that I had checked off all these boxes, and yet I was getting in my car every single morning and I was just sobbing to work. I was just sobbing, and there was no real reason for it except for I wasn't following what I truly wanted. And I recall a friend and coworker once had told me about his Reiki experience in rehab because he was trying to get um, stop drinking. And I recall just looking at him and thinking Reiki is not something I would ever do because Reiki was one of the modalities that they were using in at the rehab facility that he was in. And while I was visiting my sister, I had a major meltdown. I mean, I wasn't just like crying, I was throwing up. I was having this visceral reaction to me not paying attention to myself and the things that I truly wanted to do. So I ended up going to see this Reiki lady who happened to be 3 minutes from my house, which was, I thought, incredible. And I thought it was a sign. And my first Reiki experience, I saw lights behind my eyes. I felt all of my anxiety and my stress just sort of melt away. I had was almost like somebody had hit the reset button for me. And since then, I really believed in Reiki because it did something on a spiritual level that I had never experienced before. And so I started seeing her every month. And then somewhere along the way, I think in 2019, I had decided that I wanted to learn how to do Reiki and do it on myself. And boy, was that needed because we all know what happened in 2020, just a year later. And I decided to continue in that path because then pretty shortly after that, friends and family started asking me for it. And then people were referring me out. And I said, okay, well, I think I just have to kind of follow my heart and follow my path here. And then pretty soon after that, I had opened up my little space here in Camarillo, California. I do virtual as well. It's like half and half. I have clients all over the world, but I do have a physical space here. And people that were showing up to my door were people that really needed to shift their careers. And that I took that as a really big sign because I had developed all these corporate workshops and I went to school for psychology, industrial and organizational psychology, which is work psychology. And I thought to myself, okay, that's clearly my path as well to empower people and show them all the modalities that will allow them to follow their path.
Excellent, fascinating. And just curious then with, say, your husband, because I know sometimes people, they take a little change. I mean, you can still be in the corporate world, but have a kind of diversion. And sometimes they kind of look at you and go, is everything okay? Was it something that you kind of had to navigate, or was it supportive from the start? Because that can be
Oh my
difficult as well.
God. Yeah, I'm so lucky. I think that that can definitely be true in certain cases, but I think once he understands it, he's like, okay, well, if that's what makes you happy, he's totally supportive. And I think I'm very supportive too, because he's a huge golf nerd. He spends like 3 to 4 days out of the week out on the golf course. So it's a little bit of a give and take.
Yes, fair enough. Yeah, because a lot of people complain when the person plays golf once a week. So yeah, that's excellent. So, like, you might explain for those that don't know much about Reiki, because I'm actually surprised as well that it can be done online. But you might just kind of explain it for those that know nothing about it.
Yeah, the online thing kind of surprised me too, especially during the pandemic. I was like, I know I could do this on myself, but oh, who's going to do a Reiki on me, right? And my Reiki master had said, let's just try it. And I remember being outside and doing it over the internet and over Zoom. And it was as if she was in the room with me. It was really incredible. And I think the way that I like to always explain Reiki is we all know that everything is energy. Everything is energy, and energy does not know time and space the way that we understand time and space. And so, what happens is when the Reiki practitioner goes into this certain state and we activate that Reiki energy because everybody has the Reiki energy within them. Reiki basically means universal life force. Everyone has this energy within them. It's just that Reiki practitioners are attuned to the energy. So it's a little bit more emanating. It's a lot more active. So we're able to get in there and really move other people's energy, life force, and energy throughout their body and their auric field. So what happens even during over Zoom, what happens is we activate this Reiki energy, we get into a certain state, and then we're able, with the person's permission, of course, we're able to get into their energetic field and then move that energy out or whatever intention it is that they have for that session. And it's quite interesting because every single Reiki session that I've ever had, even if like for example, if I were to do a Reiki session on you, your first, second, and third session and moving forward from there, every single session is absolutely different for both the practitioner and the person that is receiving it. Because it is said that Reiki does no harm, and Reiki will go in there and do the things that the energy itself will go in there and do the things that is for your best and highest. What I like to tell people also after the session is that Reiki will continue to work on you for a few days after the session, because we've now gone in and cleared out energy that doesn't belong to you. We've reset your energy. Your chakras are fully balanced, and whatever intention you set in, you poured into that session is now is active, and so it will continue to work on you over the next few days after you get the initial session.
Excellent. And just for maybe those that might think this is a bit weird, or how is that possible? I just know from, say, a Spooky 2 device, you can actually take somebody's nail, and it's like quantum physics, and they could be in a different country and it's actually healing them. And there is results proving that it actually works. So it's just the same thing rather than the machine. It's the actual practitioner that's actually able to do that. And
Yeah. And, I'm quite a skeptical person as well. I like the science behind things. I read a lot of um, journals and experiments that have occurred behind the Reiki scenes, and even the shamanic practices that I am learning and incorporate into my practice. I like the science behind it. And we all know that water is living as well, and there are so many experiments out there and journals and books that talk about how some Reiki practitioners or people that go into alternate states with a certain intention and with their energy, they're able to alter the water, right? So they'll have all of these fancy devices hooked up to the vessel where the water is in, and they'll send Reiki to it, and you can visibly see the frequency in which it's changing. And there's even experiments where people will talk into plants or talk into water. One set of water, they'll talk really positive things, and the other set of water, they'll play heavy metal, or they'll say atrocious things into the water, and then they'll freeze it, and then the crystallization of the water, you can actually see that in the vessels where they spoke beautiful things into, they become like full little snowflakes or these beautiful shapes in the water. And then in the vessels that they spoke atrocious things into, it's all shard and broken, and it just doesn't look like as beautiful as the vessels that you spoke into. Same thing with the plants that you spoke atrocious things to all died, and the plants that you spoke beautiful things into are blooming beautifully and growing even taller and greener, right?
yeah,
So I think it's really fun to kind of look for the science behind the mystical stuff.
no, absolutely. And I know I have the book, and I think he passed as it was a Japanese guy that was actually doing that. He was taking all the pictures, and it was like, no matter what the word, or as you said, heavy metal. And you're kind of looking at this, and it's like, even science, I've heard of children doing it as well in schools and just practicing, where they're actually just mentally thinking, not even saying it. And I mean, like, since I learned that, I mean, there was a time where if I was growing basil or mint or something like that, it just, I'd have it by the window. But since I do that, it's like I give love to my plants, and they flourish. They don't die anymore. And, I
Isn't
know
that incredible?
it is incredible. And like, we're thinking, and like, the thing is, like, people must remember, especially like, there's a lot of parents, and they're just constantly throwing out, degrading, belittling their children. And all you have to do is think of that, because, like, you just give support to your child, give love to your child, but just don't put them down. It's the same thing, because your body's full of cells, it's full of energy. And that's how we change. That's how we stop all this madness that's going on in the world. It's like, we start with the children and stop kind of, you see it. You be in a supermarket, you see the way someone's screaming at their child, and it's like, we have to kind of stop doing that, because it's really hurting them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely agree.
Yeah, brilliant. So, like, you have transformed, and you were lucky 3 minutes away. is like for those that don't realize, because I mean, I've seen the different things over the years, like with breath work as well, where there's something deep down and it kind of surfaces. With you, it just erupted. You weren't expecting something to happen. But if you're kind of doing a session with somebody, whether it's physically or online, and the person is coming for something different, they just feel like maybe they're just not in alignment or something like that. Is it possible then that they start getting resurfaced just because of the clearing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had some clients that will have memories pop up that they had forgotten about. Um, there are others that will just what I feel that Reiki does, it absolutely clears everything out. And then anything that still needs to be resolved will come up, or you might feel an emotion, or your gifts will kind of start online. And what I mean by that is if you're trying to be a little bit more intuitive, if you're trying to really develop your clairvoyance, or you're starting to have all these sixth senses, Reiki will definitely awaken that within a lot of people. Some people will come out of a session and say, I saw so many things behind my eyes, and that's usually a sign of clairvoyance. And there's this one particular client who comes to me every so often. And she always says, I see this blue light, this beautiful blue light. And then the latest session that we just had, she was like, I could feel that this is something more than just like the blue light. And some of her intuition is really coming online. And so what I would say is Reiki will provide you exactly what you need when you need it. And if your desire is to open up these intuition, to open up these sixth senses, if you will, it will start to do that within you at the perfect time for you.
Excellent. And like this is kind of one now that I reached out to you because I had seen some of your stuff, and I just feel that you have a gift, and you just kind of know when you kind of see some people, you feel they have a gift, and I know that you're teaching others. But on the other side of the fence, then there's people, they go away and they start something like this just to kind of catch people. So there's two kind of sides to this. One, for those that they kind of, to make sure that they get somebody that's would be beneficial to them rather than fraudulent, and the other one, then if there's somebody that's actually looking to get started themselves, how you'd recommend them to do it.
Yeah. So the number one rule that I always tell people is if somebody tells you that there's something wrong with you, or they're saying things that don't land with you or make you feel uncomfortable. For example, I just had this happen to me. I was at Barnes and Noble. My husband was at a golf tournament, and I rode along for the ride. And while he was doing his tournament, I went to Barnes and Noble. And this lady came up to me and she was like, my energy is really attracted to you. Like, I have a message for you. You should really come and see me. Like, that's a red flag for me. You know, we all have spiritual sovereignty, where we all have our own free will. And so if somebody's coming to you and saying that you're cursed, or that they see something in your energy, that usually goes down this line of like, now you have to pay me for these things, right? If you look at my website, I I give out a ton of free things, and that doesn't.
And fantastic stuff as well, because I've gone through a lot of it. It's not just because sometimes people are, and it's just to let people know, because sometimes people give out something free and it's to grab the email and then they're bombarding them. Like, you can go in there and actually play the stuff and look at the stuff without having to give it. And when I see that, I love to see that. It's kind of
Yes.
like, no intention. It's just, I'm here to help.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. And and that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm legitimate, but what I would say is feel into the person, research the person, look at their podcast, YouTube, in social media. Is this person accessible? Type of situation. You want to really do your research. And also, I ask people, how did you find me? It's always, oh, I found you on Google. And then I'll ask them, what made you come to me? And they're like, something about your energy, right? I could tell that they did their research. because they've gone on my website, they've looked at what I've done, and something still told them that, this is the right place for them. So definitely use your own discernment. But if you feel bombarded, if you feel like fear and like this person is urging you to come and see them, that usually isn't as on the up and up as I would love it to be.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, fantastic tips there. And you mentioned the podcast there. So let's kind of delve in. It's beyond meditation. So it's you and your friends. So like I love the podcasting, obviously, but like what your intention was for that, what you're kind of doing, and also kind of how does it work navigating with a co-host?
Yeah, so the intention was to empower other people and to show that not one size fits all, that to inspire people to really look at all the different modalities. Because when I first started, I think when everybody first starts down this path, everybody says meditation, 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 but meditation wasn't working for me. I was so ingrained in my 9 to 5 and climbing the ladder and, finding the husband, and it just wasn't working for me. So, and I had been in therapy for like 20 years. So and not to say that therapy wasn't working, it just wasn't working at the rate that I needed it to work. And so I still have a therapist, but then I started incorporating Reiki, and I started incorporating numerology and astrology and breath work and body scanning and all of these things. And I wanted to share it with people. And what better way than on a podcast where people can kind of go and listen to it at their own pace and kind of check out what I'm up to. And so I had told my friend about it, and she wanted to also do the same thing. And so we decided to partner up. I actually do like having a partner because it really we can divide and conquer, getting guests on, and it's becoming easier with a lot of the tools that are out there, and editing and all this good stuff. But I'm also finding a lot like you that, I don't have to edit as much. People like the raw footage. So we're starting to scale back on that a little bit as well. But it's really great to also have a different perspective and a different dynamic, because I might not always ask the right questions, or she goes a little bit deeper sometimes or goes down a different path, which is really great because that might be something that listeners want to go down.
Brilliant, brilliant. And I watched like a workshop that you've done, an online workshop, and
Yeah.
yeah, I actually like the style that you've done. So you might just kind of talk about the way you're doing workshops and how you kind of interact with people, because it was just the way you were showing the screens and everything, the different information as you were kind of seeing your little face at the side. It was nice the way it was done.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a lot of the stuff I learned in the corporate world, so I tend to merge that a lot. And being having a degree in psychology really helps in understanding how people learn and how people absorb information. And so I tend to give these workshops. They're free, um, every now and again, like 2 or 3 times a year. And I do like to pour into it, not just me talking the entire time, but also people reflecting, because that's what this work is all about, is the inner work within us and really kind of understanding where we're at. And, these workshops are, a lot of people come to those. So I try to really make it so that it's also individualized in a way where there's a little bit of thought behind what you're working on and how to, one second. Sorry, I'm fighting off a bit of a cold here. Um, and so in a lot of these workshops, I have a specific intention. So some of them, it's all about finding a new path. Others, I have a couple of breath work workshops where we'll talk about a certain topic at the beginning. So let's say it's like inner child work. And so we'll talk a little bit about inner child work and what that means and how to incorporate it into your life. We'll get into the breath work with a specific intention. And then people will have the ability to journal and really get a lot out of that.
Brilliant, brilliant. And like I know you kind of talk about limitations as well, and sometimes it's kind of maybe about money because a lot of people suffer about the limitations of money. So perhaps you might kind of talk a bit about that.
Are you talking about a little bit about limiting beliefs around
Yeah,
money?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite things to work on with people because I think as children, we are so ingrained with how our world is then, whether our parents are talking about, well, money doesn't work on tree or it doesn't come off trees, or you see your parents struggling for something, or maybe it's the opposite where money is just going out the door like no one's business. And the things that we experience, even on a subconscious level, really gets ingrained within us. And so when I started really looking at that, like I always thought I had a great relationship with money, but that was not always the case because, yeah, I was able to get a job and have money come in, but I was not able to contain it for some reason. And when I really started looking at my beliefs around that, and the way that I grew up and the way that my parents talked about money or how they felt about money, it so happens that on some level, I felt that way as well, because that's what I had learned. I didn't know anything different. And so when I walk clients through that, it's really interesting what limiting beliefs come up because, and there was one that recently came up last year. I was working with a business coach and we were really diving deep into why I didn't want to charge people for stuff. And what came up in one of the things that we were doing, she was doing a certain modality with me. What came out of my mouth was like, I feel like a burden. And I didn't even know that that was a limiting belief of mine. And it was so eye opening to understand that and then to start to do the work to kind of change that story, change that perception within me so that I can then have continue this business because at the rate I was going, I was giving everything away. And at the rate I was going, I wasn't going to be able to keep the lights on. And so, really changing that story within me has allowed me to continue what I truly love doing.
Right. And like just on that, because what I've seen is, well, with me, what sometimes what happens is, I put a lot of energy into, say, real estate business or whatever, and then I'm kind of, living off some of the profits from that and then working on something else. So money is never the focus. And then later it's like kind of looking as you're kind of digging into your kind of savings funds and you're going, maybe I should be changing. And you change your focus. And I look at other people and it's kind of all their energy goes into money. So they're not, I suppose, caring about other people and everything. It gets to like an illness. And like there's a few people I know now and they're multi-millionaires, but it's like I wouldn't like to be them because they put their energy there, their thought process, that's where they focus the whole time. And I think we need to kind of, the circle, the wheel of life or whatever, that health, family, finances. But a lot of the time people turn off one of them and they don't focus on that. And we need to kind of realize, hey, we need this wheel to go around. We can't have a broken wheel.
Yeah, it's a balance for sure.
No, excellent. So, like you mentioned the breath work. So I've experienced a lot of different breath work. So I'm just curious what kind of ones that you do. I know I saw the video where you were kind of talking on, but I'd like to just kind of tell the audience the what kind of breath work that you're going into.
Yeah, so I do a very very specific breath work that allows us to go from our sympathetic state into our parasympathetic state, which basically means going from fight or flight and our primal brain back into just our normal state of being, which is resetting the vagus nerve. And I forget what this type of breath work is. Shameful, but basically is 80% into your belly, 20% into your heart, and then release. And you do that for a certain amount of time. Usually I have people breathe that way for about 20 minutes. It's a lot of hard work, but I promise it is worth it at the end. And then at the end, we go into your normal state of breathing in through the nose, out through the nose, as we let our bodies kind of settle down. Within the first 3 minutes, I will say people will start to feel very tingly. You can feel the oxygen in your blood. Um, and I encourage people to breathe at their own pace. And so you'll hear me during the breath work often say things like, it's okay to slow the breath down just a little bit, because what happens is you tend to try to breathe with the music, and the music might be really fast. And so that's when we start to kind of hyperventilate. So I'll always encourage you to slow it down, go at your own pace. If you need to take a break, but come back immediately to the breath, because that's really where the magic happens. And I invite people, it's very different from meditation, because I invite them to bring their thoughts down into their bodies, and then to allow, after they do that, to allow any memories or anything that comes up to just come up, versus meditation, where all you're trying to do is quiet the mind and get rid of thoughts. Where breath work, you're inviting thoughts in. And oftentimes that's really where the true healing happens, because once you bring your thoughts down into your body is basically going to be telling you what you're holding on to, what certain situations that are happening in your life are about. I'll give you an example. So I was doing breath work one day, and I was really thinking about why I make myself so small. Like, I always want to give everybody like the light, and that I needed to stop doing that. I needed to be more kind of in the middle. And I did the breath work, stuff came up, nothing to really pinpoint it. But then I took a break and I went down to the coffee shop. And on my way back from the coffee shop, I started to realize these memories that I had long forgotten about from childhood, where it was all about giving my sister the spotlight and really dimming mine, because it was her time to shine. And that really gave me this aha moment of like, wow, like that was like the pivotal moment where that's when I started to do it. And I felt like that was the right way to kind of please everyone around me. And that was the right thing to kind of do, when really I needed to just kind of be in the middle and also shine my light, but allow others to also shine. So
Excellent.
that's one thing that breath work can do.
Yeah, no, brilliant, brilliant. And I know you kind of talk about kind of the 9 to 5 soul sucking. People are on a kind of, I don't know, the rat race, and just so for those that are in that situation, what advice would you give them, or what will Rekki help them?
Yeah, raking can definitely help. There isn't one formula for any one person. It's going to be a lot of experimentation into different modalities. Breath work can definitely help. That really propelled me. Reiki obviously opened up my path. So definitely try Reiki if you can. Astrology can be another thing that can help people kind of find and find where to start on their path. So there's so many different modalities. And so really doing the research, we have our podcast as well, Beyond Meditation podcast, where we talk about an array of different modalities and where you can start, and, go with what calls you, go with what interests you, and really go down those rabbit holes and start somewhere, but don't stop with one modality. Continue to experiment and look at different ways that you can continue on in your path or find a new path. We're so ingrained to know that, or to just go to school or find a job, and from there, like, just make as much money as you can, or whatever the case may be. And so when you start to look at different paths, something happens in our brain where it's like, this isn't safe, like this isn't how you do things. And so we tend to kind of give up, or some of those limiting beliefs that I was talking about earlier might come up. And so I find that a lot of people kind of resist or give up. And so what I would say is, if you do find yourself going down a path and then letting it go and getting back into your 9 to 5, just know that that's normal. And it's all about getting back on the path and finding new modalities that'll allow you to expand and really open it up.
Excellent, excellent. And just finally, because like I've looked at the different you've a lovely website, the graphics that you use and everything, and just for those listening, I've invited you to come on the crypto podcast because I know you're in that space as well. So that's something I'm looking forward to. And you've also graciously given me a meditation as well, which I'll put on after this interview goes out, so people will actually, get to actually watch what you've with the graphics and your nice voice. But with kind of promoting yourself then, as well, because there's a lot of people that are kind of, they're doing different things, whether it's the meditation, the breath work, because, with the social media, it's something on the speaking podcast I started doing, but I'm very curious because it's one of these things I think we kind of have to do it in life to just get it out there, but it seems to be a time suck and nobody seems to enjoy it. But I saw with you tend to keep your LinkedIn kind of professional and away from, and so what's your call on this? Because I think everybody seems to kind of figure out what works for them, and I like people's thoughts on it.
Yeah, my LinkedIn might change pretty soon. I think I'm starting to be a little bit more brave about this path I'm going down, because, and I was just talking to somebody else on my podcast about this, because there are so many people in my business world that have signed up for my newsletter or have come to me and have been curious about this. And I'm so hesitant to talk to them about it because I feel like there's going to be so much judgment, or like they're going to just think that I've lost my marbles, basically. And I'm starting to be a lot more comfortable in my skin. I'm starting to be a lot more comfortable with who I am. And so the more and more I get comfortable, the more and more I'll be changing some of those things you see on my LinkedIn. But I do like to keep my LinkedIn professional because I am still in the business world, and I do speak at different events for my blockchain company. I'm in a gaming blockchain company, and I was trying to keep both worlds separate, but it's so interesting because when I'm at those crypto events or blockchain events, there are people that are attracted to my energy and will start to talk to me about Reiki or retreats or drumming and things like that. So I find that really interesting. So I see both worlds kind of converging. And I think that the times that we're in, like, I know that Google's doing like a Reiki experience type of thing for their employees, and Atlantic Records has done the same thing for their employees. So I see a lot of businesses kind of coming to terms with this is what people need, and they're offering breathwork classes and things like that. And so I think that these worlds are probably going to kind of come together for me sooner than later.
Brilliant. And I think, I've kind of learned that over the last few years as well. We tend to tiptoe around in case we offend or whatever, but I find now it's like what you see is what you get. I put it out there. Someone asks me a question, it comes as is. There's never, I never go out to intentionally insult somebody, and I'm not out there making comments or anything like that. It's not just who I am. Even if someone's attacking me, I don't respond back with that. But I think the more you do that, the freer you become, which you realize, why didn't I do that from day one? So,
Right.
and like what you're saying, like I know a load of people that are kind of into the, yoga, meditation, breathwork space. They're all big into crypto as well. So it tends to be, and a lot of the people. So I think it will actually work for you personally. Definitely, I think people will embrace it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm starting to see that more and more too.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant. So you might let people know, where can they find you?
Yeah, so the easiest way to find me is on Instagram. Crystaluna Vortex is my handle. Also my website, www.christa, CRYSTA hyphen Luna, LUNA.com. And also on my Beyond Meditation podcast on Spotify and Apple, or yeah, Spotify.
Okay. And I'll
Beyond
make sure
Meditation podcast.
I'll make sure I put all the different links. And just on your website, the shop, you've got like the crystals and everything. You've got some beautiful stuff that's very reasonably priced. I mean, usually now you'd see stuff and you go, but the stuff that you've got looks fantastic, and loads of it is sold out, which actually kind of is a credit to what you've got.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Crystals, I've been collecting crystals since I was 13. And my grandpa took me to Sedona as a family trip, and we went to that's in Arizona, and we went to a crystal shop for the very first time, and I was just in awe. So I've been collecting for a really long time, and so I like to share it with people. And oftentimes when I do Reiki in person, I will recommend crystals, and I would always send people to other crystal places, and people would always say, you should offer some here. And so I started to kind of work with some miners and people that kind of know their stuff. And so I started to sell those as well.
Brilliant. And perhaps you might come back and we can actually do an episode just on crystals to kind of go deep into it. And maybe you could be showing some of them and explain it. Because I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying the benefits, but personally, I don't know nothing about it. And perhaps there's a lot of people as well. So that I think that would be nice for people to kind of learn a bit more about crystals. If you're up
Yeah,
for
I
it.
would love that.
Brilliant. Okay. Excellent. So I'll make sure I'll put all the links on the podcast, both on the audio and the video. As mentioned, the next one that will go out will be a meditation that you've graciously sent me. So, and I'll have all your links on that as well. So thank you very much, and for a beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
No problem. So that's all for the meditation podcast. You'll find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description, and you'll find my 4 other podcasts along with the coaching on bio.link/podcaster. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends, and check out Jesse's podcast as well. Give her a 5-star rating and a review because it really helps. Until next week, take care.